people that want to
pretty
hear
close.
what's happening.
He's in driveway.
Thanks for coming to the May meeting. Let's call it to order and appreciate you coming. May is crazy busy, I know, for everybody. So thanks for showing up. We appreciate that. First order of business is, has anybody had time to review the minutes from the last meeting, April 29th?
I have. I'll make a motion that we approve them.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve the April 29th minutes. Can I have a second?
I'll second them.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say no. The motion carries and the minutes pass. Takes us to you. Didn't even give you time to get your papers out.
Yeah, just
Sorry.
get warmed up, getting the papers out. Good evening, everybody. As kind of seen in the packets, we did have the financial report for April, so I just kind of provided the summary on that. Overall, nothing really too terribly exciting going on financially. I mean, the lake is coming to life as we would expect in April. Income is increasing. We did show approximately $21,796,000 in income. Watercraft permits being a big portion of that. Started having a lot of bass tournaments, fish tournaments. So we realized about $14,779 in permits, related launch fees, and of course some of the fishing tournament expenses as well. Expense-wise, still kind of keeping fairly lean and mean, but we're also starting to pick up some salaries as the gatehouse and such is opened, and I think we worked James a little bit this past month. So salaries and wages are up about $15,480, for the year as to be expected. Really no other major expenses outside of that really came up during the month of April. So surprisingly, we ended up the month in the black, about $3,318. Balance sheet wise, not a whole lot of changes. Obviously, the $3,000 went into the checking account, so our cash balances are up a little bit. And obviously, we're cashed out the 100,000 CDs, so that's why we've got so much cash accumulated. But sitting in a pretty good position right now from a financial standpoint. So we'd be open to any questions if anybody has any. Okay. With that, basically, in your packet, we also had the report of claims that needs to be approved for this past month, April of 2015. Total amount of claims presented, 3,502.60. So be open to any questions on the claim, and if not, if I could have a motion to approve the claims as presented.
I did have a small question in that there are a couple of dredging supply checks. They total about $1,000. Just
One was a Visa card.
We did have to pick up
The Napa was probably the filters.
filters, and then from HD Water Supply, we had to pick up about 2,000 feet of silt fencing to redo around the disposal site. So that was
That's
a big
probably,
chunk
that's
of it.
Okay.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, with that, I'll make the motion we approve the accounts for April.
And we have a motion, if I could have a second.
I'll second that.
With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Seems like we just got here, but also included in basically your packets a budget timeline for the next year. So basically, as you can see, we are just kind of presenting the timeline for the budgeting process going into 2016. But over the next few weeks, we will be preparing the budget. Basically, at the next meeting on June 20th, we will present the budget just for kind of what we call a reading for everybody to review, and then start the public discussion process for the budget in July, with the second discussion being in August, and that being kind of the last time really that any changes basically could be made. Thereafter in September, around the September 2nd is when we publish the budget both in the HT as well as the Brown County Democrat, and basically once it gets in to publication, the budget's pretty much set in stone at that time. We do a second publication the following week. We have kind of the formal public hearing on the 16th, and then hopefully put it up for approval on October 21st. So didn't know if there's any questions on the kind of the budgeting timeline and how that process works.
If you just clarify again for everybody's understanding, once it's published,
Yeah, you're done.
so these later efforts are rubber stamped.
It's more of formality. Really, the two critical things and the ones to be attentive to, are basically, the July and August board meetings. That's where there'll be open discussion and where there could be any revisions and stuff made to the budget, really at that time.
August is the last.
And August will be the last open discussion for that.
Are we still planning on keeping money in for the smoke bars?
As far as I know, yeah. Okay.
One thing about your timeline, you point out a selection of the board budget committee tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to address that?
Yeah, that'll be next up on as item D. Yeah, on the agenda. Basically, we will kind of appoint, the budget committee. Historically, it's been myself, the president and vice president, that would serve on that committee and kind of formulate the budget and do some of the rolling up the sleeves type work. But would be open to any other suggestions or anybody else that would like to serve on that committee.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Sue, are you good with that?
Oh, yeah.
No one else is interested?
Any other questions on the budget committee? Okay, with that, if we could just have a quick motion on the formation of the committee, consisting of the treasurer, the president, and the vice president.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Yes, me, I'll say.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
And we'll set that schedule amidst the,
Missed the three of us, yeah.
and the manager. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, that is my report for the evening.
Thanks.
All right, I believe I'm up next. Yes, first of all, we have Melissa Clark here from IU SPIA. She works with the Clean Lakes program, and they have historically done our testing for a while now. We're going to be renewing a contract with them. The contract's still being formulated by IU right now, so we'll have that actually at the June meeting for signature. But we will be going with them again. We have Melissa here today to go over the results from the 2014 testing. Melissa, can you
So you all have a copy, and then I sent James an electronic copy for it to be posted, or as you see fit to do with. Overall, in summary, the lake is in the same condition it's been in the last decade or so. Overall, there's kind of a tighter distribution in some of the nutrient data, but it still puts us in a very biologically productive lake, lots of algae, lots of suspended solids, turbidity, also marked by the high levels of bacteria. I guess if you want to flip through some of your reports, and for you, I'll just try to describe it for the rest of you all. On page 16, it shows you some graphs that shows the seasonal changes, which is really typical of Lake Lemon and many other lakes and reservoirs in the Midwest, where we start out in the spring with overall lower nutrient concentrations, and by the time we get into the end of the summer, we're kind of at our peak for algal densities and nutrients and suspended material coming in from the watershed. So we're seeing those same trends within all of those seasonal changes. So that's very typical and mirrors all years in the past. Then if you look at overall, I guess to show you kind of when we've been out there sampling on page 19, it shows all of the precipitation. So for you guys, you have all these rain events, and then we get in there kind of in between a lot of those. But that does have an influence on our concentrations and results. If we get out shortly after a rain event, sometimes things are elevated because you've got this big watershed that's flushing all this material out of the watershed and in through the lake, which we do tend to see higher levels of the bacteria counts shortly following rain events, because everyone's ground is saturated and everyone's continuing to use their septic system. So you see that reflected in the results. And we also, last year and this current contract that we're working on, we have included a storm event. So in addition to getting out during our normal sample dates, we intentionally come out on a rainy date in the middle of that rain event and capture the tributaries that are coming in so we can correlate that, yeah, like any other lake, you tend to get a lot of that coming in during those rain events, which is what we did see. And then if you look on page 22 and 23, you see overall historic trends of the last about 20 years that we've been monitoring for you all. And you can see that overall there's some scatter, but more or less the lake is characterized as a eutrophic lake. And for those that aren't familiar with that characterization, it basically means that the lake is characterized by overall low clarity, that you've got about 3 feet of clarity before you lose sight of your equipment. You have lots of algal cells, you have lots of turbidity from the sediment and soil washing in from the watershed, or because the lake is a very shallow lake, it's more or less, you think of it as pretty deep, but most reservoirs are more like a dinner plate where they're pretty steep on the sides and then they're overall pretty shallow. And Lemon is like that. Even with the dredging, it's still overall a shallow lake. So lots of boating activity can also stir up a lot of that material. So it still shows that we have this little bit of variation over time throughout each year, but we're still kind of the same. We're just treading along the same categories. I know a hot topic is bacteria counts, and likewise we tend to fall in the same overall categories where we still have elevated counts, which is pretty common in many watersheds, with a lot of stuff coming from the watershed from lots of septic systems, not just here at the edge of the lake, but throughout the whole watershed. So steady results.
Steady.
Melissa, there was some discussion last year about the type of coliform testing, and we were talking about making a change. Can you refresh our memories on that?
So we've historically done the fecal coliform, which is a much broader group of bacteria. It's also an indicator, so it in itself is not harmful to be exposed to, but it's an indicator that there could be other pathogens in the water that could be problematic for human contact and intake. And then E. coli is a more specific species of bacteria that is also an indicator, but is a more heightened one related to human fecal matter. So, and most all other bacteria tests for beaches and public areas for swimmability would be using E. coli, so we thought it would be a better bacteria to compare with other recreational water bodies.
So we've officially made that switch with
So
you.
because this was kind of a bonus, we just added it
Okay.
on, and
I
then
just
this
wanted to make
next
sure.
contract, we recommended the shift.
Just a quick question, I mean, in terms of kind of, I know you've been doing this for several years now and
Yeah.
such. Any major red flags or anything that you see for Lake Lemon kind of going forward that we need to be concerned about as a board in addressing?
No, I think my recommendation that's always come out is it's great to have a good partnership with the watershed, because you're obviously working in your jurisdiction, and any improvements in the watershed will, you'll be able to see those best management practices show up in your results, depending on the scale of them, but it is a large watershed. Even though it's highly forested, they're characterized by highly erodible soils, so even those intact forested areas are going to have some erosion, and then your agriculture is going to contribute to that. So just working with all those landowners to help make the watershed better, because you do have a quick turnover in your lake for how large the watershed is for the lake. So it takes the lake will turn, like the entire volume of water will change out and replace itself about 5 times per year. So you would see a response from your watershed. Whereas other lakes that hold that water for a really long time, you can do all kinds of work in the watershed and it will take you years to see an improvement. So in these kind of lakes, you can see that recovery and that response.
Thank you.
May I ask you a question? Do these results go to any state agencies?
I hand them to you guys, and then I don't know what you do with them. So not for me now.
From a very personal perspective, I would really appreciate that the creek that we're calling the North Shore Marina be retitled
Okay.
the Knob Hill Trailer Court.
Okay. Well, I can do that for sure.
And
Is there a name for, is it Knob?
Knob Hill Trailer Court.
But
And
does the
then I
stream
would-
have a name? I know it's really tiny tributary.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, no.
Call it show now.
SCH.
And then, Adam, I would appreciate it, once these are retitled, that particularly the E. coli get to the State Board of Health. Because it always falls on deaf ears when I try to do something.
All right.
Thank you.
Barb?
Is our water quality the same as it's been over the years, or is it better?
It's more or less the same. Yep,
So there's no improvement, just the same?
just the same. I mean, again, we're taking an early season snapshot and a peak of the growing season snapshot. And so throughout the summer, if you were out there to measure every week, you might see some overall, like, this is a better week, and it certainly has changes on the drought years versus a very rainy year, but overall,
You don't make a comparison like 2014 to 2013?
oh, yes, yes. So if you look at if you get a chance when they get on the website, and I can show you before I leave too, we have the seasonal trends, and then we have historic trends for every year back to 97 when we started monitoring for the Conservancy District.
Right.
So over those, they're pretty much flatlined. You know, you've got those seasonal bumping up and down, but overall, we're just pretty steady.
Okay.
And so part of those characterizations of those lakes is to shift down to a different category, or like less biological activity and algal cells and clarity. You need to see some big changes. So you have to really have some big watershed changes that really lower the amount of sediment coming into your lake.
And this gets put on our website, right, so everybody can access? Okay, good.
Yeah, the one basis of comparison we don't have is we used to have the campground. And obviously that was pre-1997, which I think a lot of the water quality changed when that was disbanded. You know, unfortunately, we're limited on what we can do in the watershed, and that's really what's affecting a lot of the quality right now.
Yeah. Well, I understand that there is a Bean Blossom watershed management plan, and I'm not sure how much Martha Miller has worked with the folks in the watershed to then try to engage on it. You know, that's out of my understanding.
Isn't it true that we have 3 water treatment plants in our watershed?
I don't know.
I believe
There was 3. I think it's down to 2.
it's down to 2.
So their stuff is coming into our stuff.
Bean Blossom Creek.
They're talking about a big revision over that will affect Bean Blossom, connecting down, and it'll be forever, but it's just starting to talk about it.
If you look on that, we even get a very small percentage from Indianapolis that comes through that. It's a small percentage.
But it's coming, yeah.
It makes its way into that.
But there's no way for you to determine what is agriculture and what is human.
For bacteria.
Correct.
Well, the bacteria tests detect warm-blooded animals. So you are correct. There could be a lot of livestock that are contributing, especially if there's no livestock exclusion with those farmers, you know, fencing, you know, and that's a big part where the watershed management plan could help fund those land users to keep livestock out of the stream, for example. That's a really perfect thing to help implement livestock exclusion.
If we were to seek assistance from the Soil and Water Conservation District and apply for a grant in the 319 program, would that cost be included in the services you perform with us?
That are monitoring?
Correct.
No. So this is separate altogether, but they have funding right now.
I know they do.
So that,
I've been researching.
yeah, so, I mean, it wouldn't even be applying for an additional grant. It would be working with Martha Miller right now to say we would like to partner or cost share. A lot of it is, it's all cost share.
Correct.
BMPs and making sure that you're in what was designated as a critical area within the management plan. If you fall in that critical area, then they can fund implementation features. And I haven't looked at it that closely to see what falls in those critical areas, but
What additional cost would that be to us if you were to research that for us?
I guess I'm not clear on what you want me to
Why should
research.
my office do that?
We've got the Bean Blossom Creek Watershed Management Plan. There was a meeting.
2002, I think it's a 2002.
Well, there was I went to the final meeting, it was probably a couple years ago, and then they were kind of taking a hiatus for a little bit, and then they're gonna come back and start maybe implementing the project, so. I'm on the email list for it, and we haven't really had a whole lot of response lately, so, I just don't know if maybe the funding's an issue, or the action just isn't being taken at the moment, but, so we are kind of in contact with Martha Miller and that whole watershed plan.
Well, one of the concerns that I have is Walker Channel. You know, it's a natural feed. It's great. Go on the other side of the road, you got cows tromping in it, pissing and shitting. You know, I don't want it to be, we can only assume it's septics. No, we can't assume that, not when you got cows tromping around just on the other side of the road in the creek. I mean,
They're in the creek.
so it'd be nice to be able to separate the two, you know. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, no, it's different.
Nothing against you, but
All right,
it's,
I'm just reporting the data.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Nice to know it's coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess when you say septic systems in your report, it gives a negative connotation to the group. And,
Sure.
and I think it should be more of an agriculture. I think there's 30-some farms in our watershed that contribute to.
Septic's important as well.
I'm not saying it isn't, but she said septic twice and she never said agriculture once. So I think the agriculture and working with farms and farmers and landowners and trying to get them to work with our watershed is very important, and there is money out there for us to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one thing with this 319 funding. You're going to get support for the watershed, but you won't get support for septic. That's kind of a, it's too
That's all,
big.
and that's really what I'm looking
Yeah,
for
it's too
is
big
a
of a
watershed.
problem nationwide.
We have more of a watershed problem than a septic problem.
Oh, yeah.
So it would be up to our office management to apply for those grants then?
Yes.
When I left, they had the Bean Blossom Watershed Steering Committee had just come into a lot of money. I know they're looking for farmers to do cost share programs. I'm not sure how successful they were with implementing them and hitting the ground. I haven't been in contact with her yet, but we'll look to get into contact with her.
Do you need a motion?
No.
Apply for that or anything?
No, we'll get in touch with the Bean Blossom Watershed Steering Committee. Because, I mean, they're already in place. And once you get into the watershed scale stuff, you really need a full group of people to do it. We can't do it just with 2 staff, but we can help with them and work with them on the money, so we'll look into that.
My last question, you mentioned Martha Miller. Been talking to Nathan Stolting from the Soil and Water Conservation District in Monroe County. Are you familiar with him?
I'm not. I'm
Okay.
only familiar with Martha.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, Melissa, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for your hard work.
Sure. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome to stay around if you want, or head out.
That's okay, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you, new contract.
It was 8,089 for 2 years.
8,089.
8089
8089,
for
yeah.
2 years.
2 years, 2015 and 16.
Thank you.
I believe we'll get in touch with the Bean Blossom Watershed Steering Committee. I knew they were having a tough time of getting the money on the ground, but we'll get in touch with them because I really agree we need to work with them and look at the watershed scale scope. All right, onto the barge design. At the last meeting we met, and
Sorry, did you want to renew this testing agreement? Or is that?
That's
Wait
not
till
the,
June.
they-
that's actually IU still working that up,
Oh,
so
good.
we'll have
Sorry,
that
thanks.
at the June meeting
Sorry.
for signature.
table.
Thank you.
At the last meeting, I decided I wasn't really comfortable with designing a barge myself. I really didn't like the sealed bidding process, so I had to spec everything out, and I wasn't quite sure what to spec out. So I did a little bit of research, and I came up with a request for proposal avenue to solicit builders. And so we came up with a request for proposal, and what this allows companies to come in with their own designs, and we can actually work with them a little bit more to kind of tweak the design how we like it. It's a little more open conversation between us and them, and ultimately the design comes back on them. I know I said we started looking for builders who could build it. We've come up with 3 companies. Ron Thrasher has come up with one who said he's willing to put on a full barge bid, and I've talked to 2 other companies. Ron's guy's already been down and looked at the channel and kind of started quoting stuff out. I have another one coming down on Thursday, and we're going to go look at some of the areas that we need to be able to reach. So this request for proposal is actually currently at Angela's office. I want to get her blessing before I send it out, make sure my T's are crossed and I's are dotted. I told her I'd like to get this out for advertising next Wednesday for the first round. Since the monetary amount's the same, the advertising requirements are exactly the same as the bidding process, just except we don't have to spec out the barge. So currently the timeline that I have set up on this is the issuance of the request or proposal. I have May 27th, which is next Wednesday, and that's assuming we get it back from Angela. As soon as we can, we'll get it out. We're going to send it to the companies we've been in touch with. We're going to advertise in Bloomington, Brown County again, and Indianapolis. And then I've been looking at the state board website, and I believe we can advertise. They have a website where companies can go to and look at different requests for proposals around the state for government entities. And I believe we can advertise it there as well. And here I kind of leave it up to the people for the design. I talk about the current setup that we have. Barge design, I say we're looking for a similar mechanical dredging setup. We want to be able to use it for dredging, for riprap, and for debris removal. Also, we want it to be highly versatile. And I have down that we're going to give preference to companies that come and actually look at our areas of concern that we can't currently get to. That way they can take measurements themselves, and we're not giving just kind of a maximum size that we think will fit. So that is where we are with the request for a proposal. Again, as soon as I get this back from Angela, assuming we get it passed, I will be able to go ahead and advertise this. So has the board had a chance to review this? I know Lance had made a couple comments, and we'll be implementing those changes.
Yeah, sharing with the group, the comments I had was really just kind of maybe a general spec, so that when they look at the RFP that they have an idea that we want to operate in waterways that are so wide and maybe so deep, so it at least gives them a mental picture of what they're looking for. But outside of that, I thought that
That was my comment too.
Yeah.
It was really not very well specified.
Yeah.
What we want.
you know, I understand we want to keep the specs a little bit, you know, open-ended and to let them design, but at least to give them a picture of, you know, what it is that we're looking at.
Yeah, and we can do that. We have some measurements that we can put in there, and I think I might change. Right now, it's where the preference will be given to people who come. I kind of might make it mandatory for bidders to come and meet with myself and go look at these areas in person.
I think that's a good point. So you've got 2 out of 3 that have fulfilled that, and we need to see at least.
We will have 2 out of 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with 10 working days between the advertisement and the due date?
It'd be nice. I was thinking for timeliness, if we do move it out the due date, we'll end up having to push. I have it set up now so we can have like a contract ready to go and have somebody selected for
Yeah,
the June
I'm
meeting.
aware. I just wanted a little bit of discussion as realistic.
Haste makes waste. I think 10 days is pitifully short for a bid like this.
I think 10 days is pitifully short.
Yep.
And we have the RFP closes on the June 17th.
Yeah, they have more than.
So it'll be advertised on May 27th, and then it closes on June 17th. June 10th was just for them to get their technical questions into us.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
When you go to advertise it, you can put on there that you have a mandatory pre-bid, and you can set a date and time for all of them to come and ask the questions and go around all at once, so you don't have to spend 3 or 4 days doing that.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, I was looking at that. It seemed some of the other ones that I saw too, they have dates set up where everybody actually came out and kind of presented their
A lot of
designs.
pre-bid.
Yeah.
When you're talking about that
I
kind
mean,
of
you
stuff,
can-
there's a lot of pre-bid.
You can
Is
put,
there?
there's a mandatory pre-bid and then job site available between now and then by appointment or however you want to do it, but you can make it to where all of them have to show up for this
On that date.
on that day so
time.
that they know everybody gets told the same thing.
I like that. I like that.
I just worry if some people can't make that date, then we only get one request back. you know.
And we have some time to run around, but we'll let them all know, and we can put in, even if we don't do a set date, we'll just put in mandatory that they do meet with us. But
You've been in contact already with, what, three
different companies, yes.
And they've all
They've all
expressed.
said they'd be willing to bid out the entire turnkey operation.
Okay.
So,
This is
I
what we
mean-
asked for. We were troubled by not having this complete deal, so I appreciate the legwork you've done.
I do too, it's an excellent
And he's
article.
been working really hard.
Is section 4, the section you were concerned about on page 6, the specs?
Yeah, it was just pretty general. And so the main thing that I was trying to basically establish is, kind of get an idea of kind of width that it needs to go into and kind of what type of depth of water we're working at, so that they could at least have some idea of, some picture of what we're trying to do.
I wondered about being upfront about this biodegradable oil, because it sure threw the man that was here earlier a curveball, and he mentioned that it's kind of gray. Do you tear all the hoses off? I don't, for instance, believe we absolutely have to have biodegradable oil, but
We don't have to use it, it's just something
Well, it's
we've
whenever they
always,
build the
we've always
machine,
done.
yeah.
From the get-go.
And, the equipment doesn't leak anymore, unless of a catastrophic thing. I also wondered about speccing a GPS system, or should we just buy that aftermarket?
we can look. I think that'd be an accessory we could add on ourselves afterwards.
Okay. You used to talk about the pilot house had to have AC, or was that just the excavator?
We had that in the excavator with the we'll be able to work with them a little bit once they come with our preliminary
Okay.
designs. And the pilot house would be nice to have air conditioning. It's very
Yeah, it's pretty hot, basically a metal box.
Okay, now I got a couple of really small things, but I'll give them to you. On page 4, at the very bottom, the word recommend should actually be changed to communicate. Because we don't expect them to recommend discrepancies, but to communicate. Small thing, I hate the wordsmith stuff. Page 7, the very first sentence, I believe you mean to say, be transferred to the LLCD. I just think we're missing the word to.
All right.
Barges will need to be delivered to Lake Lemon. Could it be delivered and placed on Lake Lemon? Because we always end up paying a pretty good crane bill, don't we?
Yeah, we'll have I actually have that kind of in the area where we will analyze different bids. I put cost for transportation and delivery.
Okay.
So for the
I
setup,
just want to make sure they put it on the water and don't leave it in your parking lot.
No, yeah, we want them to set up, show up, put everything together.
At the bottom of page 7, you mention a certified check, but there's no evidence of how much that needs to be.
That'll be based out on the contract, once we go into contract with whichever vendor we
Okay.
decide, that all the pricing and timeline on the pricing will be laid out.
Okay, that's it for me. And again, I really applaud your efforts to go out.
I think we're okay.
Pretty hectic. Thank you.
On that, I can only hear part of it, but does that also include testing the barge on the water as well?
Yeah, in this, it'll include them getting on the water, and then this will actually have a guarantee in it once we write up the final contract. We'll have to come up with an allotted amount of time for us to test it, and then we'll make them put it up on the water, run it, show us it works.
Okay.
Sure it doesn't say.
I couldn't really hear, so.
No problem. We can make these additions. Is there anything?
Is this something we want to bring at the picnic meeting, or do we want to try to get it maybe a week before?
Well, I was, from what I understood from reading over all the different budgeting guidelines and requirements with the request for proposals, it seems as though we can open up the bids outside of a public meeting, but once we award a contract, we have to submit to the public everybody who bidded and all the prices for the risk of giving out proprietary information for each company. So what I was looking to do was either using one of our committees or potentially having an executive committee meeting a couple days before the June meeting so we can go over it, pick what we want, and have a contract ready to go for the June meeting.
I like that.
Seems like a good plan.
That way we can get everything hashed out beforehand when we show up.
No surprises.
No surprises and just
Use the finance committee, budget committee.
What's that?
Which is exactly.
We already have a budget committee.
We do, but we can certainly do it as an executive
I think it should be
session,
done
I
as
think.
executive committee. This
Probably.
is something all the board members need to do.
Yeah, we all
Yeah,
need
it's
to
gonna
be
be a pretty big
responsible.
decision, so
And I
it'd be nice
believe
to have
this
everybody.
qualifies under that, so, okay.
I have in here, under the schedule events, complete initial evaluation on June 18th, and that is the Thursday before that meeting. So I was thinking just on that June 18th, we could have that executive committee meeting, go over it all, and
That's a
hash out
Thursday?
what we want to do.
Thursday, yeah.
At the office.
Here at 6 o'clock.
Well, or at the office.
We can, yeah, we'll look at what's available.
The newly remodeled office, right?
Almost. Bathrooms are done, bedrooms are all done, it's all painted, it's looking very nice.
You can take a shower.
Oh, yeah. thank
Oh,
you.
that's all.
We appreciate that.
Has he yet?
Yeah.
So do we need a motion to establish that executive session or not?
I think so, yeah.
Probably do.
Yeah, then we'll have to
Okay.
advertise it.
Just in case, okay.
I move that we have an executive session.
I'll second that.
June 18th. It's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
What time is it?
It's at 6,
We say
tentatively.
6.
That's
6
fine.
at the office.
In the afternoon.
Any discussion?
I do need a motion to approve this
Oh.
pending any changes from Angela.
We'll do that if we do the motion on the meeting.
Alright.
So all those in favor of an executive session, 6 PM, June 18th, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Now I'd like to seek a motion to accept this request or proposal pending any changes and recommendations from our attorney.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion, further discussion? Been moved and seconded that we accept this request for proposal. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nice
Motion
job.
carries. Thank you,
I've seen
Adam.
a lot of
And James
RFPs,
as well.
getting a lot of RFPs, and matter of fact, there's a Speedway fireman in Marty's district that asked last year about an RFP, if you remember, at the picnic meeting.
I do remember that.
And this is a very, very good job, I can tell you, from working for government for 30 years. Nice job.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Get things moving. Keep going. Keep going. Got some momentum. All right. It's a freeholder survey update. They have been sent out. There's been some discrepancies between our database and the auditor's office. So tell your neighbors about it. If you haven't got a card, call us up. We can give you a phone number to get you in touch with the Eppley Center, and they can just give you an access code or to request any papered copies. If you've not got one, call us up at the office and let us know. Ask your neighbors. We're going to get as much response as we can for this. They just sent out reminder postcards in the middle of this week. Can't think of the exact date. So we're on schedule, and it seems to be rolling in. She's had a few questions and requests for paper copies. They've been going out. I want to say as of last Friday, there's already been 60-something people that have done it, and then she's had calls from other people, and we've had quite a few calls to the office. So it's coming along, and we'll see what information we get at the June meeting. The bathhouse, again, thanks everybody so much for the bathhouse. You knocked out so much work that day. Outside looks great. We have had the plumbing companies in. All the toilets are installed, sinks are installed, urinals installed, all PEX plumbing. They ended up having to do a little more work than they thought. It was an 8-inch rough on the toilets, which apparently don't use anymore. And so they had to drill all new holes for it. But he said he had planned in a little bit of labor already, but since we had already removed everything, he just did the holes at cost. It didn't change the quote or anything. So he's considered that their labor instead of the ripping everything out. So really helped us out a lot there. It looks good. We haven't got the inside painted yet. We're gonna get one more scrub down. Thursday we're actually putting out the beach buoy system, getting everything ready to go for the weekend. So we will do a painting, but we'll just have to do that at some point. Yes.
Any thought about pulling that tile up?
I have not thought about it yet.
We were in there and that tile is hollow underneath. When
Oh, it is?
When you tap on it, it is not attached. I mean, it is, it would just slide.
So if we power washed it,
would
it would
just
come right
slide
off?
right off there. And I think we'll pull it off and put an epoxy paint, like a garage door, a garage floor paint over it, and I think it would just pop right off.
Okay.
Could we do that mostly? Like,
It's just on concrete.
Maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, it's gonna come up one way or another, sooner or later.
No. And we'll look into that. I need to, we've been blowing through money this past month for everything going on. So we're gonna put that on hold for a little bit now, but we'll power wash and get it painted, and then at some point we could always just take an afternoon to rip
So
stuff
if we're
out.
looking at, what, about $500 worth of paint
Is that what it is for that?
somewhere? Yeah, both
That'll last a
sides.
long time, wouldn't it?
It would be nice, and you get the grit in there too, so it's like the epoxy and it's got
Just
texture
did
to it, so it's kind of slip resistant.
Maybe a fall volunteer day after the beach closes.
Yeah.
We had a good first volunteer day, we can do another.
All right. I like it. Yes.
Does it, in its current situation or condition, does it create a safety issue?
The floor? No, it doesn't. It's small tiles. I think what they use is probably like
Inch and a half, 3/4
Yeah.
by 3/4, inch by inch.
and put it on. It's not coming right off. Just under, if you tap on it, you can tell it's not really necessarily sealed at the bottom.
Meshed together.
Yeah, it's probably meshed together and just laid on there. So that's why you can hear it, but it's not loose and it's not preventing the safety hazard.
That's right, they did tile first.
But again, thanks everybody for that. It's huge help. We got everything installed. That was great. Debris and shoreline. The barge is on the water. It took a little bit longer than I was hoping to get on the water. We ended up having to move a lot of dirt at the disposal site. We had to redo all the silt fencing over there. We're going to be starting riprap. We've already got the quotes out, and we should be able to knock out the majority of that next week. For this weekend, I think I'm going to be able to get them out for a couple hours on Friday. We're going to mark some of the big logs and just try to drag those over to the corner. I don't think we'll get all the debris removal done, but we can go grab the big stuff. And we'll set it down near where we have the people come in on the east end. So that's where we're at with that.
Well, it would be nice to get the logs marked since we're getting ready to have a busy weekend. I mean, if nothing else.
There's some pretty.
Yeah.
good ones.
We'll try and.
We're gonna get out
we'll
tomorrow.
drag them with a pontoon boat. There aren't too many out there, but if we can't move them,
You
we'll
only need
buoy
one.
them somehow or something.
Yeah, so we'll get out tomorrow when we're doing our big work day and mark as much as we can. We have a recognition discussion for the former district manager. We had, there's been some suggestions that we name something after Bob. Me and James are thinking about Bob's potty house on the beach for the bathhouse. But it seems like the consensus says people want to name the equipment cove near the office. And we've talked to John Langley about the process. I mean, he's been here for 20 years. He was an institution. He should be recognized. We've talked to John Langley. He said there's not necessarily a formal process. Just kind of once we start creating our new maps, let's run along fishing maps just to put the title in there, and as the word gets out, it'll become known as that. So I don't like the term Madden's Cove. I think we're going to call it Bob's Cove. I like that a little more, because nobody knows Madden, everybody knows Bob.
That's right.
So we've looked into that. So I don't, should we do that at the June meeting? And
Since he's gonna be there, it might be nice to have some kind of a special certificate or in a presentation there
I
too.
would concur. I mean, if he's coming in, do we have anything planned for that meeting? Just kind of really a formal recognition for his years of service and such?
Yeah.
Okay.
we do
Definitely,
that.
but this would be then tacked
Yeah,
on
tacked
to
on
that.
to it.
I think he'd be
Okay.
tickled with it.
I think you will
Yeah.
too, and it's something nice coming from us all, so.
And
We can-
Barb kind of had this idea, and then another Barb Lewis from the other end of the lake, I don't know if she's here, had kind of the same thought, came at us from two different ways. So if anybody else has another thought, that's fine, but I think it would be really pleasing to him.
I think so too.
Barb also suggested that we contact the mayor and see if we couldn't
Do a
have a day.
proclamation.
You know, everybody and their brother has a day dedicated to him. I think we could do that for Bob.
Is there a mayor of Treblack?
I don't know. Which is Calvert, spelled backwards.
Well, we can work on the details, I guess. I don't think we need a motion.
No,
We
yeah.
No, yeah.
got
I
some
don't
of
think so. We can,
the details.
Just do that
Everybody
there.
okay with that?
We'll add it to the
Yep.
maps.
No,
Recognition discussion, and then our
Oh.
Canada Goose update. I'll leave that for James down there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got a long list here. The geese have been nesting less, it seems like, at both the islands. We treated 14 nests totaling 77 eggs. I don't have the exact numbers from last year and the year before, but I think it was about 18 nests the year before and 22 the year before that. So I don't know if maybe they're figuring out that there's something cursed about that island, or they know I'm coming out after them.
With that shirt, they probably know you're coming.
So yeah, it's pretty successful. Normally it's 90 to 95% success rate on the treatments. So I saw a few coming out of the island last year, but compared to 100 last year or 77 this year, I think it's definitely keeping them at bay. So
good.
A lot of
Yep.
goslings in our area.
yeah, I've looked around the other side of the lake and up on the east end, and I've seen them nesting, and I just haven't found eggs, and it's hard to look for geese all day.
Last year when they were in season, Ron cooked a few of them up. I just want to say they're tasty.
Yeah,
I mean,
hey, more power to the hunter.
They are
2 a day in season.
They use coyote decoys around industrial parks. Scare them. Well, thank you for risking your life and limb with those.
Actually,
geese.
Adam's dog is a big help now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, if you have somebody who wants to take their dogs are the biggest deterrent for geese coming back.
Oh, it's so much fun.
You don't even need a dog, you just bark like a dog and they'll go
And you
away.
just have to take them over there a few times and they'll figure out, because the decoys they catch on to that they don't move, but you just have a live dog marked scent and they go away, because I used to work in a building that we had a terrible geese problem and brought over a dog like twice and the geese did
Really?
not come back.
We've had them out a few times. It's pretty funny. You let them loose, the next thing you know, you got 200 geese just scattered.
I know, it's great. It's so much fun.
But you don't even need the dog, all you gotta do is bark, that's all we do. You go out there and just bark like a dog and they're gone.
But they don't come back, I'm just saying, because like when they send it with their urine and stuff, they
Yeah.
literally don't come back.
Yep.
And we'd like video as evidence.
Think about hitting the speaker out on thing.
All right, brings us to public comment. Adam, if you're done, is that?
That concludes my report.
I have a question to
Oh,
ask.
sorry.
What's your timetable for reestablishing the buoy lines?
We've got most of that
Got
worked
most,
out.
yeah.
We need to order some more buoys. It's looking pretty decent in my mind. We need to get a couple by the swim area. The couple Solano Wakes need to go out upon request.
Channels in.
The shallow area buoy line up on the east end is a little rough. I think we were missing one there. Channels marked up to Chitwood.
I don't know, at the east end, I went down it with my boat and the water was between 2 and 3 feet deep where the buoys are.
Yeah, we haven't moved that line in several years.
Yeah.
There's one of the red buoys at the east end. Couldn't get to the shore. We were going up the river is what I call it, it's being Pleasant Creek. Bird sanctuary right about here, and it was only maybe the distance of a half a block up the river, and it would have been on the east side.
Okay.
And it's one of the big red.
Up against the shore.
All right.
Up against
That's
the
easy.
shore.
I've actually had a guy drop off 2 from up in the creek. Dropped them off today. I wonder if it's...
Oh,
maybe-
this was
2 days
2 or 3 days ago. We saw it.
All right, yeah, we'll check it out. Okay.
Make a note of that.
There's so many buoys scattered out. Everybody's got real shallow boats, and they want to go on the east end along that forest line. I've seen at least 4 new buoys out there for tall guys.
We've got one that wasn't there last year. We've got an extra buoy, and right in front of my
Or
house.
That should be gone. I picked that one up.
Huh?
That one should be gone.
I can maybe get some of those ones.
It's
with the
way
way-
out in the lake though, isn't it? I mean,
Huh?
like,
Yeah,
it's way out there, you can tell it wasn't,
Yeah, it
it
is.
wasn't put there. It was,
no, but the ice brought it down.
We'll have to look at ordering more what we need after this weekend, but channels are in and taking out the buoy line from the races and kind of got, most of it's looking pretty good now, so just have to fill in the gaps here and there.
If you see one that's missing that you've seen there before, let us know. Because it's kind of a little hard to keep track of all those booths out there.
I just wanted to make a comment about the accident that was on Geist Reservoir.
Good for you.
That can happen here, folks. I mean,
What happened?
a lady driving her pontoon boat with her family and friends, a boat T-boned her, going about 50 miles an hour, and he went airborne, and she was in very critical condition.
Was it a boat or a?
No, it's
I believe it was a ski boat. It was a ski boat and a pontoon accident on Geist.
James thinks it was, ended up being a fatality. I had not heard that.
Because I hadn't seen she
Where
was in
she's serious
finally-
condition.
yeah.
I heard that today.
She may have passed.
Yeah, I can't
Okay,
say.
I mean, I don't know what,
Very critical.
do we have a speed limit on our lake?
No, we go by like
Speed limit
law.
is whatever is reasonable and prudent.
Yeah, that's Indiana state law.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I just think it's something that we should be aware of, because,
And to add on to that, the conservation officer that they had on the news interviewed said, a great reminder is you may be an experienced boater, but most of us have been off the water for 8 months or whatever, so you're rusty. And then you sprinkle in a bunch of new boaters that just got to the boat. That you
was
just
there
need to-
alcohol involved?
Well, yeah,
I
they
don't
don't
know.
know.
I mean, they didn't
still-
say.
They're investigating. But anyway, a good reminder, and I'm glad
Yeah,
you brought it
yeah.
up, to just be careful.
I just want to say, the bass boats cut across the lake faster than anything else
I know.
out here. I mean, they are,
Well, they do fly.
they're
They gotta get to
almost
the spot.
literally flying
They gotta get to the
All
spot
those things
again.
go 70 miles an hour.
every bit
Very
of, yes.
fast. Susan?
Yeah, I actually had two questions. One of which builds on what you both said, is our own accident where there was a life lost recently from a heart attack was due in part to coming too close to a human-propelled craft as opposed to a motorized craft and not wearing PFDs. So one of my questions was, do we have, and I don't get around to that, to Riddle Point, do we have a PSA kind of sign that basically says, dolt, you could have worn a PFD? I mean, do we have something
To remind
proactive
people.
as people are
Yeah.
launching? I can get such a sign that might
Why don't we
just,
just put,
Hello,
your sign
dummy.
up? Could that be your sign up?
We have a rule sign.
Well,
I don't know if we have anything
I'm
that,
asking for something more visual.
That says,
say,
yeah.
You're gonna die if you don't wear
Right,
it, moron,
right.
kind of picture.
State law
keep
requires
afloat,
that
don't
you
be
must,
dope.
They have to be in the boat.
State law doesn't
Right.
require that you wear them.
Unless you're
well, no,
underage.
but
Under
no, you
12.
don't wear them, but they're supposed to be,
Like Max Car Wash, has
Could we
cartoon
consider
figures
something
and
of that nature
kind of
that's
comic.
more proactive?
yeah, and put it down by the ramp.
Yes,
Yeah, we will.
just as a reminder, because, and it may or may not do any good, but at least it's there and it says we care enough to remind you.
there is a sign by the boat ramp that does have kind of the rules.
And that's
yeah.
fine, I'm sure everyone reads that. Something more visual with an
Yeah.
impact.
He had a
you
life
know,
jacket.
And I'm sure the state
He had
has
a
some
life
samples.
jacket.
The other question has to do with the crazy sheriff run on Spillway Road last weekend about the kayaker over the dam. Was there such an event?
I've never.
Or was it just the
I
sheriff that
didn't.
was going
Kind
nuts?
of nod here.
I've had
They did.
nothing.
Because we had no evidence of it, and the
it's
sheriff couldn't
intentional.
find the spillway.
They did it
So we
as a-
helped him out, but
They intended to
So it
go
was a
on the
false
spillway.
report?
To see
There
if they
were
could slide down the
reports.
dam.
I thought about it so much.
But if y'all, if the office didn't
We
hear
are
about
tired
it,
of this.
I have not heard about that at all.
it was well, the sheriff certainly was, I mean,
Of a dither.
and couldn't find the spillway, that was the other fun part of it, but.
So
Of course, by then it was too late.
No. Just
Huh.
Some idiot decided
I,
that'd
you know,
be fun
going
to
down
do.
Big Blossom Creek is fun, but over the spillway would.
Not so much,
Yeah.
no.
I mean, as far as the boat safety, I mean, my husband and I are getting ready to get out on new kayaks, and I don't really want a bass boat to run over me.
I don't want one to run over you either.
And we have had a high number of first-time users, it feels like, buying annual permits this year. and coming
Most of
out
the
fishing.
basketball guys are.
I don't know if you feel the same way, James,
That's when I would be
but
at.
compared to when I was here, it seems like there's a lot of new people coming. I think since Monroe is so high right now, and before usually early season, they start to fish here and then just stay. I've talked to a lot of people.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a thought on new boaters. I know some of our fees and whatnot are regulated by whoever, I don't know all the details, I'll be the person to admit that, but is there some way if they can show that they've taken a boater safety class, or, I mean, because people have cards from that, is there some perk that we can offer as an incentive? So if you're coming here and you have taken a boater safety course, and you show it when you're doing your application, I mean, is there any, can we make that connection in any way, shape, or form?
I don't know, because if they're over 16, have a driver's license, and there's nothing you can do whether they took the course or not. I don't think we could offer a perk for it.
We're gonna offer a free course again.
We are
this
offering
year.
a course, yeah.
We
When's
don't
that?
have a date set.
Oh.
We're waiting to hear back from the CO, so
That's
that'll
good.
get sent around
That's
to
good.
all the freeholders if you want. to
June
attend that.
13th,
But that doesn't sound like-
Saturday.
I mean,
Oh,
it's
do you
cool to think
email you
anybody
mine?
can go
Yeah.
hunting, but it helps if you've taken a hunter safety course.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
if it ever can be looked at.
I think the main issue is you have to just keep out. I mean, obviously, we got a lot of people kind of look out, for each other. And obviously, we do try to have the DNR out as well, and I know they have been enforcing some of the boating laws, so if they do see people getting reckless, they are citing them as well. But, unfortunately, there's not a lot you could do if somebody's just gonna be stupid. You just have to
I just
report
wanted it on the
You gotta
record
take some
that,
personal
we as
responsibility.
aware of road safety.
Maybe just a handout with the rules, awareness when they're coming to get their permit.
Yeah, and we
Not
can.
necessarily have them sign it as a receipt or something, but just, be sensible. Here's the rules, it's everybody's height.
And we can make signs too, just print our own and put them in the gatehouse like a big kind of.
Well, I think a handout, they
Yeah.
We have a handout like that we could start
Well,
handing out.
yeah, I mean, having it and giving it out are two different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, when we joined the Conservancy, we did get a handout,
Yeah.
but as a non-resident,
Yeah.
we don't pass anything out
Not
like
unless
that,
they
do we?
ask for it.
yeah.
So as a resident, we
Yeah.
Well, we
receive
can.
that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Any other public comment? Seems like we kind of segued into that. Yes, sir.
I went, little bay by the trestle.
Yep.
Any chance the lake police could watch those people, because they're flying away from those docks along the south shore, or coming in fast. It's an idle zone.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Well, those buoys are way out further than they should be anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they're much more than 200 feet away from the shoreline.
They are. We kind
And
of
I would
try to
like-
get
I would like to put them back.
like
because-
back closer to the shoreline.
Yeah, to 200 foot, that's where they belong.
Yeah.
Dude, does it say no wake zone?
I believe
Yeah,
the
so
boys
it's
say.
The buoys, yeah.
Long-
They do, okay, all
No
right.
causeway.
Yeah, but if you look, I think
I haven't been over there. You can have my kayak.
Well,
And yeah, we'll give this year's a head up. Had people mention it. Absolutely.
all right. Next meeting is June 20th. It's the picnic, 10 o'clock at the Shelter House. Bob will be there to be recognized, as he does know that, correct? We better
We'll
make-
let him know.
Somebody let him know. And then we will have this executive session June 18th, Thursday prior at 6. Location TBD.
Motion to
With that,
adjourn.
motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mike. Second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Nicely done, 1 hour. I love it.